When are we going to finally see Atlantis and its most famous resident in the MCU? It's been way too long. But if you believe the rumors, the famed underwater kingdom might make an appearance in Phase 4. Because of the Eternal century-spanning story, we're going to see part of Earth's history that we've never seen before. And given the time period and the rumored villains for the movie, we might be in for a special treat and see an older Atlantis that doesn't have a tremendously high water bill yet, if you get my drift. How would that work? Well, let's swan dive right in to find out.
You get a reading on those tremors?
It was a mild subduction under the African plate. It's an earthquake under the ocean.
If you're making a list of all the classic comic characters the MCU has yet to introduce, I think there'd be one individual who would top most lists. I'll give you a hint. He'd probably beat you in a swim race. That's right, I'm talking about Namor, the half-human, half-Atlantean king, whose origins trace back to the very beginning of Marvel Comics. And yes, I said half-Atlantean, as in, he's the leader of the legendary underwater city. Atlantis hasn't appeared yet in the MCU, but come on, it's only a matter of time, right? We've got super soldiers, Asgardians, and Incredible Hulks running around already, so why not throw in Atlantis to really spice things up? Namor and Atlantis could be the shot in the arm Phase 4 needs to really kickstart this new era of the MCU. Anyone who knows Namor's history knows just how many ways the Sub-Mariner could be used in a future movie. He could be the rogue anti-hero who does what's right but only in protection of his kingdom. He could be a straight-up good guy, or he could be a downright villain. Right now, the last one seems to be gaining the most traction, as most fan theories point to Namor being the big bad of the upcoming Black Panther 2. And when you look at it, that would make a lot of sense. The first Black Panther saw T'Challa become the king of Wakanda and learn a valuable lesson about what it means to lead his people. In the end, he decided to open up Wakanda to the rest of the world after years of keeping their technological advances and armored rhinos a secret. But by the time Black Panther 2 rolls around, everything will be different. Sure to T'Challa, almost no time at all will have passed since the Battle of Wakanda and Thanos snapped. But he's returning to a kingdom that's been on its own for 5 years. How has Wakanda's place in the world moved on without him? Because of this problem, the best way for him to prove that he's still worthy of being king is to face an outside threat. Maybe another kingdom who wants what Wakanda has to offer, and that's the perfect time to bring in Namor and Atlantis. The Sub-Mariner would be a perfect foil to T'Challa, and the conflict would be amazing. Two kings with different mindsets and ideals battling it out on both the political and physical battlefield. Yeah, I'm totally sold. But because this is a shared universe, the MCU is in a great position here. They don't necessarily have to wait for Black Panther 2 to introduce Atlantis. If you think about it, Marvel's upcoming film The Eternals provides the perfect opportunity to not only introduce the concept of Atlantis to moviegoers everywhere, but also flesh out the kingdom's motivation, which would give the conflict in Black Panther 2 way more weight. So how would the Eternals utilize Atlantis? Well, buckle up, kids, because it's story time. When the Eternals movie was first announced, I was more excited than those kids who wanted to take a picture with dabbing Professor Hulk. Not only are we in for some awesome fan-favorite comic characters, but the Eternals' entire existence means we're going to see a completely new side of the MCU. For the most part, the MCU has kept things in present with small glimpses of the past, but that's all going to change with this new movie. Based on the comments by Kevin Feige and the official plot synopsis, we know that the movie will span thousands and thousands of years and move through quite a few periods of time. We also know that they'll be up against their mortal enemies, the Deviants. Based on those two pieces of information, it stands to reason that we'll see a pre-sunk Atlantis in a flashback and could potentially see what causes the mighty kingdom to relocate to the bottom of the ocean. Now, this is just speculation, but if we look at the source material, it all starts to click into place. In the comics, the Eternals were created after the all-powerful Celestials got bored and decided to tinker with human DNA. Have you ever done that? You know, just lounging around realizing there's nothing on TV and suddenly decide to create an entirely new race of superpowered beings? No? Celestials are weird. With their experiments, they ended up creating two offshoots of the human race: the immortal, powerful, superior Eternals and the genetically deformed Deviants. Man, that's a huge bummer. Imagine emerging from new birthing chamber looking deformed, scaly, and scary, and then looking over to see people who look like Richard Madden, Angelina Jolie, and Selma Hayek. Man, you'd feel like you got the short end of the stick, huh? So while the Eternals are perfect and godlike, the Deviants were seen as complete failures. Because of their monstrous appearances, they couldn't blend into society like the Eternals could. I assume they could only go out on Halloween, where they were sure to win the scariest costume every single time. This drove them out of the public eye for a while. But they wouldn't stay that way. The Deviants were committed to war and launched a number of different attacks and assaults on different civilizations. The most famous probably being a still thriving land-based Atlantis. When the Deviants invaded, the then leader, King Camus, was determined to save his city no matter what. He used a powerful weapon called the Serpent's Head, which drew up magma from the earth and destroyed the Deviants in a wave of hot lava. Yeah, you know the game Don't Touch the Floor because it's lava? Yeah, the Deviants definitely lost that one. But securing the victory came with an ultimate price. It made Atlantis severely unstable, and earthquakes quickly became common. Then the Celestials returned to Earth, where they saw what the monsters the Deviants had become and decided to get rid of them. The godlike beings created a nuclear cataclysm and sank Lemuria, which was the Deviants' homeland. But because Atlantis was relatively close by and had a shaky foundation thanks to all the hot magma, it also sank beneath the waves. Whoops! Thankfully, a small group of Atlanteans were able to survive thanks to a water-resistant dome that kept the people safe. And after a few thousand years of eating nothing but fish sticks and fresh sushi, the people in Atlantis started developing gills and the ability to breathe underwater. And thus, the kingdom of Atlantis was truly reborn. So how does this relate to the Eternals? Well, by using this plot, there's actually a really cool way to include Atlantis in the Eternals movie without too much trouble. Since the movie's going to span a long period of time, I imagine we'll exactly see how the Eternals came to be. We'll see the Celestials creating both the Eternals and the Deviants, and then seeing the two sides go to war. But we also know that the Eternals have been hiding for thousands of years, and will only just now start to reveal themselves. So why have they been in hiding for so long? And why did they decide to sit out the Battle of New York, Ultron's huge attack and Thanos' Wakanda attack? Sure, maybe they wanted to stay out of human affairs and let us figure it all out. But what if it was something more than that? What if they feel extremely guilty and ashamed about something they did in the past and decided to go into hiding? You know, pull the old Star Wars trick of having extremely powerful people disappear and go into hiding after a tragedy. I'm looking at you, Yoda, Luke, and Obi-Wan. I can see the movie depicting the early days of the Eternal Deviant War, where the Eternals are incapable of saving Atlantis from the monsters, or worse, somehow cause it to sink themselves. If the movie tweaks some things around and makes the Eternals responsible in some way for Atlantis, suddenly becoming a lost city, then it would totally make sense why they'd spend the rest of their time in hiding. But of course they won't stay that way. In the present timeline, when the Deviants return, they're forced to reveal themselves in order to prevent the destruction of another city. So maybe Thanos' snap somehow woke up the Deviants, and the Eternals decide to reveal themselves in order to stop them. This would allow the MCU to introduce the idea of Atlantis before featuring the underwater city fully in a different movie. By placing the backstory here, audiences will have a deeper understanding of the tragedy Atlantis faced, which will make all of the Atlanteans better. It was super common back in the day for MCU films to feel disconnected from each other. Remember all the backlash in Iron Man 3 when Tony really could have called any other Avenger to help him out? But that can't and won't happen anymore. By including Atlantis in the Eternals, it could work as a direct setup for more appearances down the line in a truly cohesive way. That's definitely the path Marvel should take moving forward. And all the backstory of seeing a pre-sunk Atlantis will only make Namor a more interesting character when we see him as a potential villain in Black Panther 2. Maybe Namor will want to invade Wakanda for their vibranium supply in order to save their city. Picture this. Namor comes to Black Panther and a newly opened Wakanda and asks for help in using the massive vibranium cache and all their technology to raise Atlantis from the depths of the ocean. But maybe the cost is just too great in a way that will hurt Wakanda. Or even better, if T'Challa knows it just won't work and can't help Namor. Alrighty, this makes for a great thematic continuation of what made Black Panther so great. The first movie ended with Black Panther opening up his city, and then the sequel would directly deal with that action by having an underwater kingdom desperately needing Wakanda's help, now that everyone knows how powerful they truly are. But once T'Challa can't help, Namor is sent into a fury and declares war on Wakanda to take the vibranium themselves. On the surface, that's an okay motivation, but imagine seeing how great of a civilization Atlantis was in the Eternals movie, and that gives everything Namor's doing more weight. He wants to return Atlantis to his former glory, and doesn't care what he has to do in order to get it done. It will also forever link Namor and the Eternals in the future, which will make for a difficult and rocky team-up down the line. Although I don't believe Namor would stay a bad guy in the long run, he would still hold some hostile feelings towards the Eternals for their role in sinking his city. It would be a great way to raise the stakes when the next big galactic threat comes along, and Namor has to work together with the Eternals to save the day. That sort of character conflict will keep the MCU interesting to watch as we move into Phase 4, Phase 5, and beyond. So yeah, the Eternals should definitely include Atlantis in its main story. How could it not at this point, huh? Well, that's a wrap on today's Atlantis video. Would you like to see the city when it was still above ground? Or can you wait to see it in all its underwater glory? Let us know in the comments below, and be sure to hit that subscribe button for more awesome MCU content just like this. Thanks for watching, and stay dry, my friends. Cannonball!